The story continues with the shady priest from earlier reporting the news to Bishop Pierre, who is now seemingly the Bayezid family's biggest opposition. The bishop is surprised to learn that the young knight actually cut down Black Bear without hesitation, and when he asks if that's truly the case, the priest confirms it. As you can imagine, the priest is pretty terrified because he knows that the bishop will be upset, but rather than lashing out, His Grace is actually very calm about the situation. He admits that the young knight is even more intense than he had heard. With this in mind, he asks to confirm if Father Andreas is actually the one who vouched for the young Sir Vlad. The terrified priest confirms this at this point, claiming that it's what he was told as well. Hearing this, the bishop concludes that they made the right call by shaking the kid up after all. Just as Joseph thought, the bishop actually came up with this scheme just so he could set Vlad up and get him to fall into a trap. Now that Bishop Pierre has successfully done that, he hopes that the rest of his plan goes well, because then he'll finally be able to eliminate the rising star from Ara in one go. As far as the bishop is concerned, the second son of Bayezid has just dared to challenge him by relying solely on bloodline. Besides Joseph, Bishop Pierre also considers Father Andreas an enemy as well, because he feels that the man is a thorn in his side who pretends to be a devout clergyman. This is what he thinks of the two men, so you can imagine how pissed he was to find out that there's now a knight from the lowest gutters who's backed by the both of them. With this in mind, the bishop decides that there's no reason to stand by idly any longer. As far as he's concerned, his will is the will of the papacy, and the will of the papacy is the will of God. This is the bishop's conviction, so he orders the shady priest to send word to the mayor of Ara. He demands that Joseph Bayezid must show guidance to the foolish knight, who dared to ignore his pardon. But that's not all. Bishop Pierre also orders the priest to prepare their secret weapon. As soon as the scared man hears this, he's taken aback because it probably sounds drastic. He's reluctant to believe it, but the bishop confirms that this is what he wants. It's the thing they've been preparing ever since Pierre was posted to Ara long ago. It's the one they say was struck by the black lightning. The bishop insists that it's unthinkable for Vlad to emit aura and become a knight, and he doesn't care how gifted they say the young blondie is. And for this reason, he concludes that there might be a dark shadow dwelling within our hero. Bishop Pierre is convinced that the truth will come to light soon enough, and he believes that all those who vouched for Vlad won't be able to escape unscathed either when that happens. The scene shifts, and we're taken back outside where a small army arrives at Vlad's doorstep. From the banners they're carrying and the cape on their leader's back, you can tell that they're from the church. Sure enough, the man at the front makes his presence known, announcing that they have come under the authority of the bishop. The white-haired knight states how Sir Vlad disregarded the pardon issued by the bishop and claims that the offense is equivalent to rejecting the will of God. The man states that it is a grace offense that may even be considered blasphemy, and on that note, he loudly demands that the gates be opened to them immediately. The white-caped messenger reveals that all of them inside will be treated as heretics if they do not obey and open the gates. In response to these statements, the door is suddenly opened, and the visitors are greeted by one of the Bayezid knights. The guy teases the visitors, claiming that they're making a ruckus this early in the morning, and of course, the big guy with the cape doesn't appreciate the mockery. Without wasting a second, he reaches for the sword and asks the man who he is. That's when the Bayezid servant introduces himself as Maxim, Knight of Lord Joseph. And then, he informs the visitors that Rose's Smiles is under investigation as commanded by the mayor. As you can imagine, the bishop's knight is pissed by this statement, so he hits back at Sir Maxim, informing him that this investigation is beyond his authority and claims that the people here are suspected of blasphemy. At this point, Maxim proceeds to show just how stubborn he can be. He responds to the guy in the cape, suggesting that they're going too far with their allegations because as far as he's concerned, it doesn't make sense to say that someone is guilty of blasphemy for staying in the same place as Sir Vlad. The bishop's knight is starting to lose his patience but manages to keep his cool and informs Maxim that the church made the judgment, which makes it final. He then reminds the Bayezid knights to know that there's an inviolable line between nobles and the church, however. Sir Maxim also reminds him that they're not the ones who crossed the line. Now, things start to get pretty heated, and that's when Sir Maxim's soldiers reveal themselves. They march out with their weapons and shields, lined up behind him, and now that it's clear that they're ready for a fight, the Bayezid knight makes a declaration. He reveals that the Bayezid house is invoking legal jurisdiction to seal off this area from this moment forward. On this note, he makes it clear to the bishop's knight that he'll need to get the mayor's permission if he wants to enter. It turns out that this is exactly what was needed to ensure that the man and his forces can't get in. He's furious about it because Maxim just bested him, so he assures the man that he'll regret his actions. As far as this visitor is concerned, A mere knight cannot bear the weight of defying the church, but Maxim just hits back at him with a cheeky grin, claiming that he'll just have to try to bear that weight. Besides, he's also in debt, so he doesn't have much of a choice than to go against the bishop right now, because that's the least he can do to repay the cost of his life. The scene shifts at this point, and the story continues later that morning. We finally catch up with our boy who's currently behind bars. As usual, Sir Jaeger doesn't hesitate to scold him for messing up. He is especially pissed at Vlad because he's told him several times to always be ready for what's next. Unfortunately, our boy didn't think things through this last time, and now Lord Joseph is the one who has to clean up all his messes. The green-eyed knight is really mad on this occasion because this is like the biggest mess Vlad has ever found himself in. In his mind, the kid's actions have made him no better than a servant even after becoming a knight. Sure, Sir Jaeger has every right to be mad, and Vlad knows this too. So he just apologizes, knowing that there are no excuses this time. Seeing how downcast the young knight is, Jaeger starts to feel sorry for him. It's sad that he's in this position because he's actually very smart. The senior knight feels that Vlad wouldn't have even fallen for such a sly trap if only he had just widened his vision. But just as this thought crosses his mind, he suddenly realizes that it's actually wrong. Sir Jaeger is well aware that this same kid has been running around so much on different missions, and as a result, he lacked the experience to understand the delicate balance between nobles and the church. Maybe if Vlad wasn't so busy with missions, he'd have had the time to learn about all the politics. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and Bishop Pierre took advantage to pick his target perfectly. Now that he's done berating the kid, Sir Jaeger informs him that Lord Joseph is buying him some time. However, the young master can't do so much, so the best they can hope for is a well at most. He informs Vlad that he'll soon have to testify at the church and tells him to get ready for that. Our boy acknowledges the instructions, feeling pretty shitty about everything going on, and Jaeger feels the same way. Sadly, this green-eyed knight isn't good with expressing his emotions or being soft with his words, so he just stays quiet for a while before offering to go get the boy a thicker blanket to help him through the cold night in his cell. As the advanced knight walks away, the voice speaks to Vlad, telling him that he shouldn't blame himself. The voice assures him that he did what had to be done, but after seeing where the action landed him, Vlad doesn't even know what to think. He just stays silent for a while before finally getting his words together. Our boy also believes that it was clearly the right thing to do, and even now, he still doesn't think it was wrong. But at the same time, he can't believe that it wasn't his fault. Seeing where it landed him makes him finally understand just how different the world of the back alleys is different from the world of knights after all. Hearing these words from the incarcerated young knight, even the voice is at a loss for words. Just then, Vlad begins to recall some of the lessons that Sir Jaeger taught him. He remembers when the advanced knight told him to always remember that a knight's sword must be heavy because it is sharp. Back then, he didn't get what his one-eyed teacher was trying to tell him, but now, he thinks that he finally understands what that phrase means. Our boy sits alone in the cold cell as the snowflakes start to pour down on the town, and that's where the scene fades out. Days later, we see the cunning bishop looking out his window with disgust laced all over his face. The sight before him makes him finally understand why the Bayezid house insisted on holding out for a whole week. Apparently, there's currently a protest going on outside his residence, with many people of the city clamoring about how unjust Vlad's trial is. The people protest furiously, insisting that Black Bear deserved death because he was literally a crime boss who allegedly sold off pregnant women. The protesters believe that Vlad did what had to be done, and they're furious that the knight is being treated like a criminal. As far as they're concerned, this bishop grants pardons to murderers, and so they urge him to stop insulting their knight, Sir Vlad, the pride of Ara. As if that's not enough, the protesters start talking about how they can't accept a bishop sent by the Paypack. This is the north, and so the people of Ara make it clear that they want a bishop who carries northern blood. As you can imagine, Bishop Pierre is irritated by this uprising. This development is clearly against his interests, and his true ideology of Ara becomes a lot harder to hide. In his mind, the behavior they just showed simply proves why people say that northerners are no different from savages. As annoying as the protest is, he also finds it amusing that the Bayezid house thought they could shake him using public sentiment. With this in mind, he concludes that all these displays are just cheap tricks, destined to fail, no matter how much effort they put into them. As far as the bishop is concerned, this trial will be a stage to represent the will of the papacy. Sure enough, the protests truly aren't enough to change the outcome, and shortly after, we see our favorite young knight standing before a judge and jury. It's the day of the trial, and all those involved in the incident are present for it. At first, most of them are seated, except for our boy who is about to have his fate decided pretty soon. Just then, the bishop arrives and his presence is announced for everyone to rise. Initially, Joseph was pretty relaxed, but as soon as Bishop Pierre enters, he's shocked by what he sees. Apparently, the secret weapon he mentioned earlier is actually an inquisitor. A heretic inquisitor for that matter, and after seeing it, the young master is afraid that the bishop is going too far. Even in the worst of witch hunts, the church doesn't ever go this far. After seeing this, the Bayezid son is just stunned by how ruthless the bishop is, and now, there's no doubt in his mind that they planned this deliberately. If he wasn't sure before, now, he is certain that they intended to steer the trail in this direction from the start. While all of these thoughts are running through his mind, he suddenly realizes that Sir Gregory isn't even here yet, and he begins to wonder why the bearded knight hasn't arrived at the trial. It's pretty sad to think about because now, it's like they're being held back by lack of time in the end. Soon enough, the trial officially begins. The bishop takes his seat and calls on Vlad to kick things off. One of the priests holds out a Bible in front of the knight and Pierre tells him to place his hand on it. The bishop tells Vlad to swear by the Bible that he'll answer with only the truth, and our boy does just that, swearing to speak only the truth. The moment his hands make contact with the Bible, a bright golden light begins to shine from there, and then, the floor begins to glow as well. The bright light shines throughout the hall and even reaches the crystal balls that the inquisitors are holding. At this point, it's clear that this is a very serious trial, and most of the people present are blown away by the sight before them. They've probably never seen something like this before, but the bishop is pretty familiar with this, so he explains that the oath blessing has been engraved. That being said, he informs Vlad that the light in the orbs will vanish if he tells a lie at any point, and as soon as he says this, he spots Joseph Bayezid staring at him from across the hall. The mayor is extremely focused on everything going on, and as he locks eyes with the bishop, he reminds himself that he has to prepare for the worst. Clearly, this old trickster is up to something, so the Bayezid son knows that he has to be ready for anything at any time. As for the bishop, well, he's convinced that he's got all his enemies right where he wants them. He's so confident that he wants Joseph to watch closely and feel it for himself just how powerless the proud blood of the North truly is before the truth. After making Vlad swear to speak nothing but the truth, Bishop Pierre officially begins the trial, determined to humiliate the nobles and all those who challenged his authority. The bishop starts the trial by stating the charge, which is the fact that Vlad killed a man known as Black Bear, despite the fact that the deceased had been granted pardon. He then asks the accused if this is true, and of course, our boy doesn't deny it. With his hands bound like a common criminal and his head bowed low, he confirms that he did kill the man, and just like Bishop said, the shining orb keeps glowing. Once the old man sees this, he's not surprised since that's the whole reason for this trial in the first place. After this is established, he then asks Vlad if he admits that he defied the word of God himself, which is kind of a stretch. As you'd expect, our boy is thrown off by this next question, so he snaps, asking the old man what he's even talking about before insisting that he did not defy the word of God. The old man equally seems annoyed by the young knight's tone, but he just keeps his cool and proceeds to ask the next question. While the whole thing is going on, Joseph Bayezid is just intrigued by the lengths the bishop is willing to go to win. The mayor is irritated at how despicable the old man's method is because he can clearly see that Pierre is trying to frame Vlad using a petty leading question. The truth is that no matter what answer Vlad gave in that last one, the clever old geezer would have found a way to twist it in order to reflect his interpretation of God's will. Right now, the bishop is shamelessly playing a very dirty game, and from the look of things, he's just getting started. A sinister smile creeps up on the man's face as he proceeds to the next question. He asks Vlad if he believes that he has always made just and righteous decisions every time he killed someone similar to this chase. Of course, this is another trap, but our boy probably doesn't realize it quickly enough. He takes a brief pause and then answers the question with a yes, but then all of a sudden, the light in the orb goes out, leaving the kid perplexed. As soon as this happens, the blondie doesn't even know what to think at first, and before he can process anything, the bishop concludes that what he just said was a lie. Master Joseph watches everything intently, which is why he knows that Vlad just fell into the old man's trap. The truth is that no one can always make the right decision, so for Pierre to ask such a question in a trial like this confirms that he's got an agenda. Always just righteous. These are 3 words hidden in the question to force out a lie from the kid. Of course, our boy doesn't intend to lie, so he tries to defend himself, protesting that he did not tell a lie. However, the cunning bishop has already moved on from that, and he simply tells Vlad that it's time for the next question. Moving on, the old man recalls an event from about a year ago in the back alleys of Ara. The bishop reveals that there was a report of a boy who was struck by a black lightning bolt. Of course, our boy is taken aback when he hears this old man talking about this, and while he's still trying to take it in, the man boldly asks him if he was that boy. This time around, Vlad is a little more patient before responding, but it doesn't change the fact that there are no right answers for this question. The young knight confirms that he was that boy, and a twisted smile appears on the bishop's face because now he can boldly say that the ominous sight was with Vlad. Our boy tries to defend himself and make a statement, but before he can get a word in, Bishop Pierre cuts him off and moves on to the next question. While Vlad is still trying to process what is going on, the bishop goes on and asks him if he heard any kind of voice after being struck by that lightning, or if he received any revelation from an unknown entity. At this point, our boy is on the hot seat because he's already told one lie from the look of things, and now there are even more difficult questions being thrown at him. As for the people at the trial, they're just stunned because it's pretty shocking to learn that their favorite knight is marked by an ominous sign. Some refuse to believe, but it's not exactly easy to defend the young swordsman when he's unable to answer the question. It's a pretty big deal right now because it would mean that all of Vlad's achievements up until now were just because he was possessed if it turns out to be true, just like the others in the hall. Joseph Bayezid is equally starting to panic. The young master knows that it's true that Vlad showed growth beyond common sense in the past year. But still, he doesn't believe that that alone can be used as proof that he was in communion with something heretical. Besides, he saw the truth with his own eyes many times. Joseph saw that the boy's sword shone with a radiance incomparable to anything else. While he's torn about the situation, the bishop is equally running out of patience because he's eager to prove that the kid is a fraud. The old man demands an answer from Vlad, wondering why the swordsman isn't saying anything, and of course, it's because our boy is currently overwhelmed by that question. He doesn't even know what to say right now. If he says yes, then he becomes a heretic, and if he says no, he'll just be accused of lying again, which won't be good for him at this trial. No matter how he answers, it will go exactly how the bishop wants. Just then, the voice in his head tells him to say yes, informing him that lying right now is more dangerous. He tells the boy to just say that the lightning caused some after effects and that he lost his mind briefly. Right now, this seems to be the best call, because if he says no, it will be taken as a lie, and if that happens, he won't even get a chance to explain himself. Vlad knows that there are 3 questions left, and with the way things are going, he might have you reveal the voice's true identity if things take a turn for the worst. In response, the voice simply tells him not to worry, revealing that he has a way to keep his identity hidden, which just leaves our boy confused. Meanwhile, the bishop is already running out of patience. He tells the boy, wondering what he's doing and why he hasn't answered the question yet. He has to answer right now to avoid any more suspicion, so the voice tells him to believe. At this point, Vlad finally responds to Bishop Pierre. Just when he's about to answer if he hears a voice, the trial is suddenly interrupted by someone who comes in, demanding that the whole thing be stopped. Joseph and everyone else in the hall are taken aback by this interruption, including the cunning bishop who was so close to getting the confession he's been waiting for. This unexpected guest just happens to be Father Andreas, who loudly insists that this whole trial is unfair. Vlad is shocked that the priest is here while the bishop is simply furious when he sees the old man and his students. Bishop Pierre snaps, stating that Andreas has no right to be here or even speak of fairness in this trial. However, the priest hits back at his grace, reminding him that he's the one who vouched for Sir Vlad of So Ara. He was the one who picked up that name, which lay unnoticed in the dirt, and then offered it before God's name. Father Andreas explains that the bishop should have come through him first if there has been any suspicion about the young knight. At this point, Pierre realizes that he can't stop his nemesis from being present since the man knows his right too. So, he begrudgingly grants him permission to enter. Once that's done, Father Andreas walks to the middle of the hall to meet Vlad where he is standing. The boy is so glad to see the priest that he's at a loss for words. The father then holds his hands and commends him for doing well so far, but now, he wants Vlad to leave the rest to him. That being said, he asks Bishop Pierre to repeat the question, revealing that he will be the one to answer in Vlad's place from this point on. Apparently, there's nothing wrong with that either, so the bishop doesn't even protest. He just proceeds to explain the situation to Father Andreas, and then repeats the question, asking if Vlad heard any voice or received any revelation from an unknown entity after being struck by the black lightning. The old man almost seems taken aback by the question, but he wouldn't want to put his client in any more trouble, so, after sneaking a glance at the boy, he comes up with a clever response. He claims that all of Vlad's actions henceforth will be accompanied by that voice, and Pierre attempts to capitalize on this answer, asking if the priest is suggesting that the voice came from something unholy. However, Priest Andres is familiar with his game, so he quickly cuts him off and suggests that the voice is from God who resides in the skies above. As you can imagine, this statement leaves the bishop absolutely furious because it almost sounds like blasphemy. But then again, Father Andreas reminds everyone at the trial that Sir Vlad has cut through pitch black darkness with blinding light over the last year. He protected the pilgrims from the remnants of a fallen dragon, and even saved the lives of children from heretical beings. After making all of these points, Father Andreas asks the bishop to consider how rare it is for a knight to be simultaneously vouched for by himself and even San Rosino. At this point, the people at the trial are a lot more relieved because they begin to understand that the voice wasn't something unholy, but rather the voice of God. It does seem logical, especially since one of the young knight's guarantors is none other than Priest Andreas after all. Regardless, the bishop is determined to prove that Vlad is working under the influence of a dark power. He reminds everyone that the boy was born in the back alleys, a lowly place, and suggests that God wouldn't give his blessings to such a person so easily. Unfortunately for him, Father Y quickly counters this point, reminding him that a certain Lord Frozen was also the child of a fallen noble family, who endured countless hardships from the bottom and rose up. He became the one and only swordmaster too and the founding king of the empire. On this note, the priest explains that God's blessings are not given based on where one is born, but on where one chooses to go. This response leaves the bishop speechless, so he just gives up and proceeds to ask the next question. Now, he tries to bring up Vlad's past, stating that the boy has committed countless crimes in the back alleys of Ara and then asks if it's true. In response, the priest simply states that that was more akin to emergency relief. The bishop almost loses his mind when he hears this because he doesn't get how a crime can be called emergency relief. Unfortunately for him, Priest Andreas has an answer for all his questions today. He asks the bishop if he has ever laid his eyes on the reality of the back alleys filled with stealing, robbing and sometimes even killing. It's a place where tragedy is the only option to survive. But he also makes it clear that this isn't just Vlad's story, because it's the daily life for everyone in those alleys. If the church regards them with compassion and offers warm support, that endless chain of tragedy could be broken, and the priest makes this very clear to the bishop. At this point, His Grace is starting to get frustrated because he's getting countered over and over again. Still, he insists that the knight's rate of growth is simply unbelievable. It's baffling to him that someone who only recently picked up a sword has already awakened aura, fought knights and even killed a dragon. Once again, Father Andreas calmly responds to this, revealing that on that day, a mere mercenary who ran through the pitch-black night to fulfill his duty tore open the night sky with a miraculous, pure white light. The priest is confident that he's not the only one who saw the radiant world of Sir Vlad, so the bishop asks if there is any witness present, because it's just a claim if there's no witness to back it up. This is Joseph's cue to weigh in on the trial, so he presents the evidence he's got, claiming that it's a testimonial written by honorable knights themselves. Knight Duncan of Heinel, Holy Knight Justia of San Rosino, and even Volkov Baranov, the heir of the Baranov family, rulers of the north. Joseph reveals that all of them have testified to Sir Vlad's achievements. However, the bishop is reluctant to accept all of Vlad's defense. This bishop went through a lot of trouble to weave a tight net of accusations, like doubts about the boy's faith, his lowly origins, his questionable past crimes, even suspicions about whether his talents were fabricated. But now, it's clear that he will have to reveal his true secret weapon, so he orders for the seal of binding to be brought forth. Just then, a group of knights make their way into the hall with the seal, and the people are shocked because these men are paladins of the Vatican. They're stunned because they can't imagine what would require paladins to be involved. Once the seal is brought out, the bishop reveals that he has one question remaining and claims that he won't ask it with words but rather reveal the truth of this matter through direct action. Then, the huge case is opened and even Father Andreas is shocked to see that the mirror of Saint Muriello is in there. It's a holy relic of the Vatican that reflects all truths of a person who gazes into it. And on this note, Bishop Pierre reveals that the exorcism ritual is about to begin. Father Andreas feels that it's absurd to engage in an exorcism ritual because as far as he's concerned, Sir Vlad's innocence can be proven through truthful testimony. Unfortunately, this bishop is no longer interested in anything they have to say, stating that he's someone who has the duty to clear up even the slightest doubt. Seeing the state of things, Joseph Bayezid just gets frustrated because it's clear that the bishop is spinning the situation in his favor. The old man is determined not to lose, and he doesn't mind taking drastic measures. The main problem now is the fact that it becomes a mark of disgrace once an exorcism ritual is performed on someone. It's a stigma that will follow him for the rest of his life, and now that Joseph knows this is a possibility, he realizes that the purpose of this trial has changed. The truth no longer matters to the bishop, and all that remains is the intent to burden everyone who stands as a witness for Vlad. From the very beginning, this trial was just a pretext to seize control of the north, and now Bishop Pierre is inching closer to that goal. The old man tells the inquisitors to prepare the sacred prayer, and it becomes very clear that things are getting out of hand, so Father Andreas tries to suggest something else. The priest reminds the bishop that there is still one holy relic left that can reveal the truth, feeling that they shouldn't treat the sacred artifact of the Vatican so lightly. Unfortunately, the bishop is already sick and tired of Andreas, so he snaps at the priest, warning him to mind his words. To him, seeking out the presence of evil is a trivial matter to the priest, and he doesn't appreciate that. On this note, Bishop Pierre explains that Vlad only needs to stand before the relic without deceit if his soul is truly clean. At this point, our boy's guarantor realizes that there's nothing else he can do to stop the bishop. If one uses the existence of evil as justification, then refusal itself becomes a confession that evil resides within, so he breaks the news to Vlad. He admits that he can't stop the exorcism, but tells the young knight not to worry, because the relic merely reveals the impure presence within. He assures Vlad that his faith in him is unwavering because he has seen our boy's true self. On the other hand, the knight doesn't look too confident. The bishop starts losing his patience again, wondering why Vlad is hesitating to stand before the relic. Now it's clear that there's no going back, so our boy steps forward and the voice assures him that it's going to be okay. As you can imagine, the boy is scared, but the voice tells him to step forward proudly, just as he has always walked toward the light. Our boy finally summons the courage to do it, and after taking a deep breath, he steps forward. As soon as he stands before the relic, the world around him changes and a powerful knight with a white cape appears. The boy is shocked, and it's even more mysterious because he still can't see the knight's face. But that's when the voice speaks to him again and the face is revealed. The voice claims that at last, he finally understands what that emotion was in the blacksmith's eyes. He feels that the old man must have wished that his humble sword wouldn't hold Vlad back. For the first time, the voice is no longer just a voice because our boy can finally see the face behind it. The immortal knight knows that he has thought Vlad all that he could, but he wishes that he could have watched the pride of so. Aura grow a little more. To avoid being detected by that mirror, he explains that he must descend into an even deeper realm. Vlad is still stunned right now because everything going on is just so surreal to him. He asks the voice what he's talking about, and the entity explains that the world of knights is vast and deep like an ocean. The world that Vlad has shown him until now was merely him dipping one foot in. But now, the time has come for the young knight to delve into deeper waters. Our boy already knows that this is pretty much goodbye, and he's not ready for that. He reminds the voice that he's still too lacking to reach that deep world on his own, but the immortal knight just smiles at him and assures him that he'll reach it someday. However, now it is time for him to go alone. The voice tells him that he's the only one who can forge his own complete world. Still, Vlad isn't ready to part ways because he knows that it will take a really long time by himself, and he's afraid that he may never even make it. In response, the immortal knight just smiles at him and tells Vlad that he believes in him. He can't be with him any longer, so he hopes that the young knight can meet him again in the deeper world. While the voice is still saying this, he begins to disappear into a bright light, and Vlad just watches in horror, wondering how he's supposed to go on by himself. Finally, the voice bids him farewell until they meet again, and in the blink of an eye, he's gone, leaving nothing but the bright light behind. Our boy reaches for the knight, desperate to hold on to him, but that's impossible, so he begrudgingly accepts his fate. He closes his eyes and his conscientiousness returns to his body in the human realm, where the bishop is busy barking at him. The old man is furious at him for closing his eyes in front of the mirror, so he orders him to open them and look into the mirror. Vlad takes a deep breath then, because now he understands what he must do, and as he opens his eyes, he vows to meet the voice again no matter what. As soon as he looks into the mirror, his eye begins to glow and the mirror shines with a blinding light that leaves everyone around in disbelief. The bishop is almost terrified by what he sees, and all the people there equally have their jaws on the floor. Father Andreas did say he has faith in Vlad, but he probably never expected the kid to pull off such a magnificent display of purity. The blinding white light fills the large hall and most people are forced to close their eyes. It's a really special moment to see the mirror of Saint Mariello bathed in the light of dawn. It is a noble light that only those with not a single speck of shame can possess. And truly, it's a really mind-blowing sight. But it doesn't end with the mirror, because all of a sudden, the clouds start to move. The white clouds up in the sky start spiraling in a circle above the cross on the roof of the cathedral. People outside are blown away when they see it, and everyone stops to stare. From the crowd outside the church to the people in the town square, to the marketplace, the harbor, and even the back alleys. Everyone in the city of So-Ara can see the pure white clouds circling up in the sky. It's such a bewildering sight to see, and even Jemina gets to see it all the way from Rosa's smiles. Back in the cathedral, the trial takes a very different turn, leaving the bishop feeling frustrated. He's blown away by the young knight and extremely confused. Now, our boy finally speaks up. He claims that he doesn't see a single thing he's done wrong and asks the accusers why they are all messing with him and cursing him like this. He asks why they are trying to take everything away from him, and as all the emotions build up inside him, he bursts into tears, screaming that he hasn't done anything wrong. As soon as Vlad makes this loud cry, a massive bolt of white lightning comes down on the cathedral to blast the mirror. Now, the light coming from the relic is even more blinding and a lot more terrifying, because it's almost as if the heavens are angry with the bishop for what he's done. And now it's clear that the boy has done no wrong. All he did was survive. He merely did what needed to be done. As the storm rocks the entire city and lightning hammers down on the cathedral, the final witness to prove Vlad's innocence is revealed to be the lingering voice that has always been with the boy. And all the people could finally see without a doubt that this child is truly the pride of Sora. With this, we're fully caught up with all the latest chapters once again. Unfortunately, the total compilation has gotten so long that YouTube can't even upload it anymore. So I'll just keep uploading this series in individual parts going forward. For anyone that's new and doesn't know what's going on, just click the link in the pinned comment below to watch the full compilation of this manhwa, starting from chapter 1. That's gonna be it from me for now, and I'll see you lovely folks in future uploads. Until next time.